Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into DC Worlds Collide. Yeah, that game where Batman, Wonder Woman, and even Bane team up in ways that would make the Justice League do a double take. If you've ever looked at your team and thought, why is my squad getting wiped in 2 turns? Don't worry, you're not alone. In this video, we're breaking down the best tanks, the strongest supports, and those sneaky tactical DPS characters who do all the heavy lifting in both PvE and PvP. With over 60 heroes and villains to choose from, building the ultimate team can feel like trying to organize a superhero family reunion. It's chaotic, and someone always ends up useless. But that's where this tier list comes in. Whether you're grinding through campaign stages or sweating in arena battles, knowing which units shine in the late game is the key to victory. So let's jump in and see who's making the cut and who's getting benched. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking characters in DC Worlds Collide. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Batgirl, Captain Boomerang, Catwoman, King Shark, and The Question. Alright, buckle up because we're diving into the D tier squad of DC Worlds Collide. Basically the folks who show up to the fight but might as well be handing out popcorn instead of punches. Let's start with Catwoman. She's got some decent speed and agility, which makes her alright for those early skirmishes, but don't get it twisted. Her damage scaling is painfully low. Honestly, she's outclassed by every other agile damage dealer in the game, so unless you're a hardcore Cat fan, she's probably not your best pick. Then we have King Shark, who sounds intimidating with that name, right? High base health means he can soak a bit of damage up front, acting as a kind of mini frontline tank. Sounds promising, but here's the catch. He brings 0 utility to the table. No crowd control, no buffs, no debuffs. On top of that, his damage output is weak even when you try to build him properly. Basically, he's like the guy at the party who's big and loud, but can't dance or hold a conversation. Moving on to Batgirl, who plays support. She's cute with her minor defense buff for allies, but that's about all she's got going on. No healing, no energy control, nothing that really swings the momentum in your favor. In fact, she's completely outclassed by any epic support character, which means she's kind of the bench warmer waiting for her shot that never comes. Captain Boomerang might sound like a wild card with his occasional bonus turn when he scores a critical hit, but don't get too excited. He's extremely reliant on RNG, random number generation, for those not fluent in gamer speak, which means you're basically gambling every turn. Plus, his synergy with other characters is poor, and his scaling is pretty bad. So, yeah, sometimes that boomerang just doesn't come back. Last but not least, The Question. This guy's the oddball support who can cleanse a single debuff, which is neat, but that's basically all he does. He doesn't scale with stats, offers no healing, and can't apply any offensive pressure. If you need a debuff cleaner, sure, he's there. But beyond that, he's pretty forgettable. So, if you're looking for a strong D-tier crew in DC Worlds Collide, well, maybe just keep scrolling. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Bizarro, Clayface, Frankenstein, Green Lantern Jessica, Killer Croc, Mirror Master, Poison Ivy, Starfire, and Superboy. Let's chat about the C-tier crew in DC Worlds Collide. Kinda like that group of players who are solid but not exactly stealing the spotlight at your next game night. First up, Bizarro. This guy's a tank with a quirky twist. He shares damage with a key ally thanks to his flower passive. Plus, his ultimate freezes enemies, which is pretty slick. But here's the thing, he really only shines if you're running a Protect One composition. Outside of that, he's kind of a one-trick pony. Superboy, our frontline damage dealer, is another easy recommendation for early teams. He dishes out decent damage and is straightforward to build, which is great if you're just getting your feet wet. However, don't expect any crowd control magic from him. He just doesn't have viable CC potential, so he can't stop enemies from doing their thing. Poison Ivy is a support with a twist. She applies poison damage over time to multiple enemies and can heal over time, which sounds like a great mix. But here's the catch. She really only works well in stall comps where battles drag on. If you're aiming for quick fights, she'll probably slow you down more than help. Then there's Killer Croc, a classic tank with a high health pool and solid basic attack scaling. He's like the dependable bouncer of your team, soaking up hits. Still, he's pretty niche. His usefulness really depends on your team composition, so don't just slot him in blindly. Mirror Master brings some cool mechanics as a damage dealer. He can reflect incoming damage under certain conditions and slow down enemies, which sounds like a neat combo. However, his viability drops sharply if you're facing teams that don't rely heavily on basic attacks. So he's situational at best. Clayface is another tank who's all about defense buffs and situational skill copying from enemies. He can be a sneaky asset, especially in stall comps, but outside of those, he's just decent. If your strategy isn't about grinding down opponents slowly, Clayface might not pull his weight. Frankenstein, yep, that big guy, is a tank who tries to bring some crowd control by applying slow debuffs and soaking up damage early on. Unfortunately, his CC is unreliable, so you can't count on him to lock down opponents consistently. Still, in the early stages of a fight, he can help you survive longer. Starfire is your AoE magic damage dealer with some burn synergy going on in the right teams. Sounds great, right? Well, her ultimate and skills just don't pack enough damage per second to truly make an impact, so she often feels underwhelming in the damage department. Last but not least, Jessica Cruz's Green Lantern support role is all about light healing, shielding, and giving allies a slight damage boost. Nice and neat, but don't expect her to carry you through the late game. Her usefulness tapers off as battles get tougher and more complex. So yeah, the C tier in DC Worlds Collide is kind of your solid but not spectacular lineup. Great if you know exactly when and where to use them, but not the first choice for most competitive teams. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Batman, Captain Cold, Deadshot, Dr. Phosphorus, Green Lantern John, Martian Manhunter, Mera, Red Hood, Red Robin, Scarecrow, Star Sapphire Carol, Supergirl, and Weasel. Alright, now we're stepping up into the B tier squad of DC Worlds Collide, the characters who definitely bring something to the table, but might not always be your star player. Let's kick things off with Supergirl. She's a neat hybrid, combining support and damage dealing with some solid burn synergy. She can hit bursts of damage, but when you compare her to pure damage dealers, she falls a bit short in total damage output. So, she's good if you want a versatile teammate, but don't expect her to carry the DPS leaderboard. Martian Manhunter is your classic tank with a healing twist. Not only does he provide team-wide healing and damage reduction, but he can cleanse debuffs across your entire squad. Super handy against opponents who spam nasty status effects. That said, he's really reliant on his healing to keep him effective, so if that falls off, he can feel pretty underwhelming. Batman brings a versatile skill set with decent damage and moderate crowd control. He's the all-rounder type, capable of handling multiple roles without excelling in any particular one. Compared to other damage dealers who specialize in pure DPS or control, Batman's output tends to lag behind, but his adaptability still earns him a solid spot on many teams. Mera is your burst healer, with a cleanse built right in. She's fantastic at keeping your team alive in stall compositions where fights drag on. However, outside of those specific setups, she tends to fall flat. So if you're running a strategy where you want to outlast your opponent, Mera's your go-to healer. Star Sapphire Carol's specialty lies in weakening enemies with burn and defense debuffs. She shines mostly in hybrid compositions where those status effects stack nicely with your team's damage dealers. Without that synergy, she's not quite enough to hold her own on her own. Red Hood is a frontline damage dealer who throws down area of effect attacks with bleed effects and can bypass enemy shields. That's pretty slick for disrupting enemy defenses, but he struggles in mid to late game player versus player battles against top tier opponents, so he's more of an early to mid game option. Green Lantern John offers shields and energy boosts to allies, along with some control over enemy ultimate ability timing. Unfortunately, his buffs are generally weaker compared to the top-tier agile supports, so while he can chip in, he's not often the centerpiece of a team. Red Robin is the speed and critical hit buff specialist, great for boosting fast damage dealers. He works well in synergy with speedy teammates, but honestly, in most compositions, he's replaceable with stronger support units that bring more overall value. Captain Cold is your control expert with area of effect freeze attacks and energy suppression. His toolkit shines specifically against fast enemy comps, denying them turns and slowing their momentum. Outside of that, his impact can be limited. Scarecrow applies fear and damage over time effects, playing nicely with debuff-heavy teams. His synergy can be strong, but like some others here, he loses effectiveness late in the game when opponents start building resistance or stronger counters. Deadshot is all about turn 1 burst damage, focusing on squishy enemies to take them out quickly. The downside? He lacks sustain, especially in player versus player modes, so if the fight drags on, he might struggle to keep up. Weasel thrives on random critical hits and synergizes with bleed and damage over time teams. He can surprise the enemy with sudden bursts, but he's pretty niche and only truly shines in very specific team compositions. Lastly, Dr. Phosphorus brings area of effect burn and damage over time pressure with good synergy for fire and weaken comps. His energy cost and damage output aren't the highest, so he's a solid but not flashy choice. So there you have it. B tier is where you find reliable situational characters that can fit nicely into your squad when you build around them, but they usually aren't the first names you'll call for that MVP spot. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Blue Beetle, Cheetah, Cyborg, Dr. Fate, Gorilla Grodd, Green Lantern Hal, Huntress, Mr. Freeze, Pandora, Raven, Superman, The Bride, The Flash, and Two-Face. Alright, time to give some love to the A-tier legends in DC Worlds Collide. These are your go-to heroes and anti-heroes, who not only survive but dominate, and make your opponents wonder if they even showed up. Let's kick things off with Dr. Fate. This guy's a beast who trades his own health points for massive area of effect damage, making him deadly against groups. Plus, he's a smart team player, shielding low health allies to keep them alive while still dishing out offense. Talk about multitasking like a pro! Green Lantern Hal is another DPS powerhouse who loves to shield the whole team, and that shield actually boosts his ultimate damage ramp-up. It's like a feedback loop of awesomeness. He protects the squad and uses that protection to hit harder. Perfect synergy right there, especially if you want your DPS to shine without being squishy. Superman is basically the late-game unkillable tank you dream of. Thanks to his auto-revive and immunity, he's a nightmare to take down. On top of that, he applies burn effects and delays enemy turns, which messes up your opponent's plans nicely. Plus, he debuffs those high-attack enemies, making your whole team safer by reducing incoming damage indirectly. Blue Beetle plays the perfect counter-tank role, especially against those annoying crit-focused enemies and high-damage backliners. He not only buffs your team's defense, but also holds the front line solidly, protecting your fragile support and damage dealers. If you're worried about burst damage sneaking through, Blue Beetle's your guy. Two-Face is the wildcard support, flipping between damage amplification and damage reduction depending on what your team needs. He's super flexible with buffs like bleed or lifesteal, and his debuffs hit hard whether he's in front or back row. It's like having two supports in one character. Raven is the late-game MVP for survivability, reviving allies when they fall and applying team-wide debuffs that play well with debuff-heavy comps. She's basically the backbone of any long fight where keeping your team alive is key. Pandora is your versatile support queen, balancing healing, shielding, and a bit of damage output. She shines in long battles, slowly ramping up to become a powerhouse, and fits smoothly in both player versus environment and player versus player scenarios. Gorilla Grodd isn't just a tank, he's a control machine. With natural damage reduction and the ability to stack debuffs on enemies, he fits perfectly in teams that want to grind down foes with damage over time effects while staying solid on defense. Cyborg brings strong burst damage and consistent output with great area of effect potential. He's fantastic in team fights where chipping away at multiple enemies is crucial, and his damage keeps rolling in fast rotations. The Flash is all about speed, literally. With incredibly fast attacks and excellent burst damage, he's the ideal opener in player versus player matches, disrupting enemy strategies before they can even get started. Cheetah boosts your team's speed while consistently applying damage over time effects. She's a fantastic early game carry with quick basic attacks and good scaling, making her a reliable pick as you climb the ranks. Huntress is your tactical single-target burst dealer, easy to build and highly effective in early to mid-game. If you need a reliable sniper to take down priority targets, she's a solid choice. Mr. Freeze brings control with area of effect freezing and lowers enemy defense, helping your entire team dish out more damage. Perfect for stall or control-based strategies where keeping enemies locked down matters. Finally, the Bride is the PvP opener everyone fears. With high single-target burst and the ability to snowball in critical hit-focused teams, she can turn the tide of battle early on with devastating effect. So, that's your A-tier lineup. Heroes and villains who bring strong synergies, game-changing abilities, and enough versatility to adapt to almost any team. If you want to build a competitive squad in DC Worlds Collide, these are your top picks to start stacking wins. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Constantine, Deathstroke, Green Arrow, Kid Flash, Lex Luthor, Nightwing, Ocean Master, Sinestro, Wonder Woman, and Zatanna. Alright, welcome to the S-tier showdown, where the true legends of DC Worlds collide, flex their powers, and make opponents wish they never queued up. Starting strong with Wonder Woman, who absolutely dominates as the best overall damage dealer. She packs massive area of effect damage with killer critical hit scaling, and her ultimate can silence enemies, shutting down their pesky abilities. Not only is she tanky enough to survive frontline chaos, but she also boosts your entire team's critical hit rate. She's basically the perfect tactical damage dealer for that back row spot. Next up, Sinestro, the master debuff stacker. His damage ramps explosively late game thanks to his ultimate, which fits like a glove in debuff-heavy teams. He's energy efficient too, meaning he keeps pumping out consistent damage over long fights without running dry. If your squad loves wearing down foes over time, Sinestro is your guy. Deathstroke is the tactical DPS king, no contest. His passive turn meter boost means extra basic attacks, and his multi-hit ultimate packs insane burst potential. Plus, he's crazy fast and tough to interrupt, perfect for those speed-based team compositions that want to control the tempo. Lex Luthor is the tank your whole team dreams about. He's got the strongest shields in the game, offering massive team-wide protection. He even grants extra basic attacks to allies, which is a dream for teams that scale off basic hits. His damage reduction scales deep into late game, making him a PvE and PvP beast when your squad's survival is non-negotiable. Zatanna is that support hero everyone loves for her simplicity and effectiveness. She boosts lifesteal and turn meter while applying frantic and armor break debuffs, helping your team both sustain and deal more damage. She's great for both PvE and PvP, easy to build, and super friendly for free-to-play players. Ocean Master excels as an off DPS support, with his ability to stack multiple bleed effects via his ultimate weakening enemies big time, especially bosses. His damage over time pressure scales well into late game, making him a perfect agile support pick for weakness-based teams that rely on sustained damage. Kid Flash is hands down the best healer in the game, a must-have in the late game. He heals frequently without needing energy, which is clutch in long fights. Plus, he fits seamlessly into almost any team composition. No synergy headaches here. Versatility at its finest. Constantine brings high burst area damage with a clever HP sacrifice scaling mechanic balanced by passive healing. He's easy to obtain and build, making him an excellent back row tactical DPS choice, especially for free-to-play players looking for a strong contender. Nightwing is your go-to front row tank with up to 60% block chance, giving consistent damage reduction and survivability. His built-in shelter skill adds self-defense, helping him hold the line in extended fights. He's a reliable tank with strong gear synergy for late-game PvE optimization. Last but definitely not least, Green Arrow shines as a late-game damage dealer, hitting targets above 40% health for massive damage. After an ultimate kill, he gains another turn, enabling chain eliminations that can wipe out whole teams. With strong damage over time and area of effect utility, plus beginner-friendly scaling, he's a fantastic all-rounder. So yeah, the S-tier lineup is where the game's biggest hitters, toughest tanks, and smartest supports live. If you want to crush your enemies and climb the ranks in DC Worlds Collide, these are your go-to champions. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.